We are back for another edition of the Fight HQ preview as we're here to talk UFC Vegas number 73. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. here to break down this fight card for you. Appreciate everyone tuning in to this episode, whether you watch us on YouTube or maybe if you're watching us after the fact on the podcast channels. Much appreciated. Of course, be sure to give a thumbs up to this video. It does help us out a ton. And, of course, maybe this first time seeing us over here on Fight HQ, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. We are live here on Fridays. We're going a little 2 o'clock, so my guy Pete get a little extra hour of sleep as he does work a little bit late in the evening, which it works out well for me too. So we are here to break this one down for you. Pete, good afternoon. How you doing, man?
What's going on, brother? Just grinding, just trying to survive. You know what I mean? Not complaining at all, but it's a grind. And happy to be here. I love doing these videos. Jason and I have been doing it for feels like 10 years now. We've been doing it a long damn time.
I want my Facebook memories today. I saw one from 2018. Bro, we look young as could be. You had that baby face look to you.
I probably still had my hair spiked and all that when I could pull that off.
No, you did not.
I didn't. Oh, okay. But even prior to that, we've been doing it for a long damn time. You know what I mean? So it's cool to do this, and happy to keep growing the channel and breaking down fights. And now people really care about MMA DFS. When years ago people just kind of sporadically cared, and now it's like a consistent week-to-week thing because of the amount of UFC events.
Well, we actually do not have a fight card next week, so we got a week off next week. You see,
nice.
look at you. You got a little pep in your step there. You're like, ooh, I can sleep in on Friday.
Yeah, ain't no sleeping in, but I need it. I need a week off. So last week was good, right? Like last week was solid. Some bad bounces in regards to like DFS production, like super weird scores for some high-end favorites, which is why it's okay to pivot off of some chalky options. What was it? Carl Williams got the victory, but it didn't really do anything with that score at all. Mid-price Cody Stamen didn't really do anything and obviously lost the decision, but like certain weird things happened. And that's why if you just take it from an analytical and data perspective, just kind of just seeing it for what it is, exposure wise, get different in MMA. It's a very volatile sport.
Yeah, I mean, this one's going to be a tough one. We'll talk about game theory here in a moment, but do want to offer up some congratulations to Pipe Star taking down the Fight HQ contest last week over on DraftKings, scoring 602.5 points, beating the field by almost 40 points. Second place was Tristan Carroll, and then third place coming in is Jim B. So, of course, top three payout in the Fight HQ contest. You can click on the link there in the description below to get in that contest. I have been struggling with my cash core the past couple of weeks. I'm hoping to turn this thing around. But, Pete, as we talk about game theory for this week, like if you tell me the optimal on tomorrow afternoon is 1,500, 2,000 left on the table, I would not be shocked.
Yeah, I'm with you because I like some underdogs. And when I was just hand building, I was like, I got a ton of salary left over just because I'm targeting certain fights, and I think certain fights are essential for GPPs, and that's the problem with me, right? Like I get a little too ballsy, and I just go crazy with it. Even in our Discord, in our contest, our Fight HQ contest, like you see my lineups, I have not even cashed once, and you guys are just dominating me in there. But I like some underdogs, and because of the fights, there is some. I would say like the odds on some fights I'm not in agreement with. So, because of the crazy difference in salary, I'm just naturally going to have a ton left over. And I'm okay with it. Don't feel the need. I have a hard time like leaving salary on the table sometimes too, because I don't know what it is, but you feel like your lineup's better if you spend all your salary, and that's not the case.
I will tell you, when I started did my first hand build for the Fight HQ contest, one thing that I did as I got to the final three, and I'll tell you where I started. I started with Angela Hill, and I went with another underdog in Maheshate. And all of a sudden, I realized like I can pretty much get to whoever I want. And I think naturally when you're hand building, you tend to spend most of your salary. So, but I think this is one of those weeks where you're probably going to leave some money on the table. And like when we talk about game theory here for UFC Vegas 73 over on DraftKings and FanDuel, like to me, I think there's two fights in terms of GPPs that you have to be saying gotta look at rostering. One of those fights to me is Joaquin Buckley versus Andre Fialho. Both of them back at 170. Kind of know the chin issues on both sides of the equation. Buckley came out this week and said, look, the reason I'm dropping back down to 170 is those guys are just massive. I could, with some of the issues he had there. The other one that to me is going to be a kind of a must roster kind of fight, and put this in the do not trust list, and that's Cosce and Urbina. Cosce just missed weight. He missed weight by 1.5 pounds. He's not going to cut any more weight. Also, Vanessa Demopoulos, she missed weight, and I sent you the video. That body reaction, that is not a good look, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because those two fights you spoke of are super volatile. But I do think that, if you land on the winner of both of them, it's going to set you up for 100 points each. So I really do think that the Joaquin Buckley Andre Fialho fight's going to be very popular, and probably on one side more than the other. A lot of people are going to be flocking to Joaquin Buckley. He's the notable name in the matchup. You would imagine that his resume is going to make people want to choose him in their lineups a lot. But I really view that fight a lot closer than what the odds indicate, because I do think that Joaquin is just as untrustworthy as Andre Fialho, especially when it comes to throwing leather. Don't know how either one of these guys are going to rebound in this matchup. But the other matchup you mentioned, the Cosce and Urbina fight, I love that fight. Urbina's damn good, but he fights super reckless and has like amateur tendencies where he just completely expends all of his energy and sometimes gasses himself out. He'll get into fantastic positions, but whenever you see his fights, there are numerous reversals, him getting put in bad positions, working out of it, and then putting his opponent in bad positions. That is like GPP territory, and that's what we want. But you got to be careful with your exposure. Try not to go too heavy on one side or the other, but I am picking Urbina in that matchup, and I can't wait to break that one down either.
I mean, look, I would be very tempted to just create a group of that fight and say, give me at least two. And see what it kind of spits out there. I mean, I think it's going to be hard. Cosce missing weight now. It's 2 straight fights. He's now missed weight. That's got to be a concern. And I mean, look, I think probably the loser of that one. I mean, look, there's some other fights that I look at and say potentially are fights I want to get to. Borshchev and Maheshate, I think it's one of those fights. I mean, that's a fight that I expect to stay on the feet. Good chance maybe someone gets knocked out in that matchup. And look, there is someone like an Anthony Hernandez that's going to be, just because of that takedown upside. We've seen the issue that Shahbazyan has had in being able to stop the takedowns. We know what Fluffy can do in terms of getting the matchup to the ground. But there are also some fights that I feel like I won't get a ton of it. Like, Kowalkiewicz Demopoulos, even before her missing weight, I kind of thought that was going to be a 15-minute type fight. But now the way she looked, and we'll have to see if this fight does progress forward. Other ones like that I look at is Nascimento Latifi is not really a fight I love for GPPs. I don't know if you have a strong. I mean, we'll obviously get in this fight a little bit more, but that's a GPP fight that I'm just like, I don't know if I really want to get there.
I think that is the common knee-jerk reaction to that fight, because of Ilir Latifi's toughness, his lack of a neck, so you can't really choke him out at all, and just it's heavyweight MMA, right? So either there's going to be a quick finish, or you're going to see a sloppy 15-minute decision. I actually do think that Rodrigo Nascimento is in a very, very interesting contrarian spot. And I'm gonna actually say that I'm gonna be a little bit more bullish than I normally would in a situation like that, just because I know Ilir Latifi throughout his career has dealt with numerous injuries, and he's old for the division now, and now he's up against somebody who actually can negate some of his best things, and that's his takedowns and getting people to the mat. So I'm excited to break that one down. But all in all, despite the sloppy card that we have in front of us, there's money to be made, and there's ways to get different from the field. And that's what we're here trying to do, is just get different from the field and take down a tournament.
And let's get right into the main event. It was a matchup that was supposed to take place last week as a 3-round fight. Now it's a 5-round fight when this fight card lost its main event. Mackenzie Dern taking on Angela Hill. Mackenzie Dern is a -170 betting favorite. +145 for Angela Hill. Over on DK, 9,100 for Dern, 7,100 for Hill. Over on FanDuel, we got $22 for Dern, $15 on FanDuel. Pete, what's your thoughts?
So my thoughts are, if it was a 15-minute fight, I'm picking Angela Hill. And I am picking Angela Hill in a 15-minute fight just because I do think the volume is far superior than Mackenzie Dern. The striking skill lies with Angela Hill. Mackenzie Dern's still improving and developing her striking for sure. But she really excels on the mat. Obviously, her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is absolutely fantastic. She has a lack of wrestling to get it in the realm where she's an absolute expert at. But when the fight does hit the mat, you do see Mackenzie Dern is just levels above her opposition. The issue here is what I always say every week. I dislike 25-minute fights. I really do dislike 25-minute fights. It's a very hard thing to remain perfect for 25 minutes. And a lot of you make mistakes in every fight, but 25 minutes up against somebody who can really just capitalize on your weakness, where Mackenzie Dern can capitalize on the submission defense of Angela Hill, I think it just really takes one scramble, one grappling situation, even Angela Hill just landing on top in Mackenzie Dern's guard. I think that Mackenzie Dern's going to win this fight, but I do not like all of the outside influences and all of the distractions that Mackenzie Dern is experiencing within her life. Lots of personal problems. Personal problems can sometimes be fuel, but they can also eat you up inside and lead you to a poor performance, especially when you're having inconsistent training camps and you're not surrounded by some of the best fighters in the world. With all that being said, Angela Hill's an excellent punt play at 7,100 from a volume perspective. Even in a loss, she could possibly, outperform that salary and do enough at 7,100 if this touches the later rounds. But I feel like she's going to be winning the fight on the feet. And one takedown, and I know Mackenzie Dern doesn't have the best takedowns at all, but she did land 2 of 11 against Yan Xiaonan. And in a loss, in a 25-minute fight, she scored 93 fantasy points. I think she sometime in this 25-minute fight, she capitalizes on the ground and she submits Angela Hill. But all in all, I'm not really prioritizing this fight, if I'm being honest. I'm okay with getting away from it, and I think the public, for the most part, is going to be attracted to it. So, give me Mackenzie Dern to find a submission, despite how ugly it may get.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that when you talk about Mackenzie Dern and being a jiu-jitsu specialist is you look at that takedown accuracy in the UFC, 11%.
Yeah.
And, and the other thing that concerns me is, if this does become a striking matchup, will she have the ability? One thing I was looking at, because I just want to find, what is wins via split decision prop? Because I feel like that's got a good chance of winning.
I mean, always, right? Women's MMA, super volatile.
Angela Hill finds her way in these matchups too.
Oh, she does, and she's a tough out. She really is. Her takedown defense has absolutely improved. Even her ground game in general has improved. The issue is that when you've been submitted by lesser competition, and now you're going up against one of the best submission artists within the division, it's tough to really convince me that you're going to just do well. You were submitted against Randa Marcos back in 2019 and also Rose Namajunas back in 2015. There's been plenty of development, but still Mackenzie Dern just needs one opportunity and she'll capitalize on it. So it's still Dern at 9,100, but I'm not prioritizing the fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the betting side, I couldn't find a split decision prop out there right now, but to me, I think from the betting side, I'd be looking at that wins via decision, whether you want to go the +225 for Dern or +200 for Hill. We'll see what happens there, but I don't I don't love the price tag for Dern in terms of a GPP play. Cash game for Hill, I think, is probably going to be a lock for me just because I do think this thing's going to go 25 minutes. And at $7,100, it just allows me to get to so many other things. Now, our co-main event of the evening will be Anthony Hernandez taking on Edmen Shahbazyan. Anthony Hernandez is a 2-1 betting favorite. He is $9,400 on DK, $21 on FanDuel. For Edmen Shahbazyan, he's a plus 170 betting underdog, $6,800 on DK, $12 on FanDuel. Pete, this is going to be a fight that I think a lot of people are going to get to because of the takedown upside of Anthony Hernandez.
Yeah, I'm going to prioritize this fight for sure, but be careful because I'll tell you what, this feels like a trap. And the reason it feels like a trap is because we see Anthony Hernandez relatively inconsistent in his early UFC tenure, then starting to hit his stride, picking up that crazy victory over Rodolfo Vieira, Josh Fremd, and most recently Marc-Andre Barriault. But previously in his defeats, he was TKO'd in the first round due to a beautiful knee to the body and elbows against Kevin Holland. In his debut, he was submitted against Marcus Perez, who wasn't some exceptional talent in the UFC. And you have Edmen Shahbazyan, one of the most exciting prospects within the middleweight division until he was exposed by Derek Brunson, where he was taken to Takedown City and just completely ragdolled and dominated en route to a third-round TKO finish. His cardio in the wrestling department is very, very poor. I do think that Shahbazyan is super young. So this is a situation where I circle this fight. I'm going to get to this fight almost all my lineups because I think that one way or another, you're going to have a fantastic score. Edmen has excellent round 1 and round 2 KO upside, especially when you know that Anthony Hernandez has been hurt to the body. As a coach, I'm going to look to exploit that, even if that was some time ago, and even if Anthony Hernandez looks to be in better shape than he used to be. I think the interesting part, right, is when you always take into training camps and teams. Edmen Shahbazyan working at Extreme Couture recently and for a little bit now speaks volumes because if he was still under Ronda Rousey's coach, I would not be like, thinking that there would be any development, to be honest. The best thing he did is leave and start getting around some other superior athletes to train with, and being at Extreme Couture should elevate his entire MMA game. With all that being said, though, I think this is a poor stylistic matchup for Edmen Shahbazyan if he does not KO him early, because for a 15-minute fight, you want to think of it like this, right? You don't want just an advantage in an early finish route to victory. You want an advantage over 15 minutes. And I don't think he has an advantage over Anthony Hernandez, who is an absolute pace pusher and is going to be making Shahbazyan work. And he's going to attempt takedowns, and he's going to test him in all areas. These numbers that Anthony Hernandez is executing is absolutely crazy. Against Marc-Andre Barriault, he went 8 of 14 in the takedown department. And then prior to that, against Josh Fremd, he went 8 of 11 in the takedown department. He does that same type of work rate against Edmen Shahbazyan, and I think we could have Shahbazyan break under the pressure and just succumb to the crazy cardio push that Anthony Hernandez is going to possess. So give me 9,400 Anthony Hernandez. I like it, but be careful. It does feel like a trap, but I think it's going to be high points galore, and I'm going to be getting a ton of this fight.
I like what you mentioned there, because my thought on Anthony Hernandez and a reason to roster him is potentially this fight getting to a third round and Shahbazyan's gas tank isn't there. Yep. And then really that's where, maybe he has the ability to rack up some points in round 1, round 2, but then really round 3, getting takedowns, control time, and then ultimately a finish sometime in the third round, really leading up to a score here. But obviously it's going to come down to just figuring out a way. And we'll talk about prize picks later on the show. I don't know if I love the takedown prop on prize picks for Anthony Hernandez, which is 3, meaning if I go, I wouldn't go less. Let me just say that. I would not go less. But also I'm like, oof, go more. You got to get 4.
4. Yeah.
If that number hit 2.5, I feel much comfortable. But I don't see any way in hell Prize Picks is going to put that number at 2.5, because everyone's going to smash the over.
Exactly. So that kind of really sparked my memory. And the Lakers Nuggets game the first one, right? I had the Nuggets -6. Whatever it was, and they didn't call a foul at the end, and then they ended up winning by 6. So I got my money back. But I'm like, of course, like, you know what I mean? Like, Vegas is so sharp with the spread. So then it was -5.5 for last night's game, and they ended up losing they ended up winning by 5. So I was just like, one way or another, just Vegas is always on top of it and ahead of things, and that's where, like, if the number was lower, or if you could just have like an alternate line. That's why I try to do that also. So I see what Vegas puts out, and then I go to alternate lines, and I always do less than what they usually post publicly, because I feel like they're so sharp and their numbers are just so good that you might as well, if you're going to favor one side, just take a little bit less money, and it's a little bit of a safer play. So 2.5 would have been a great number for Anthony Hernandez, but you get to 3, now he needs 4. And that's where you can run into a roadblock.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Here's my idiot moment yesterday. Is I thought I put my Prize Picks play in on that game.
Oh no!
And then I'm watching the game. I had a LeBron. I think I want to say the play I was looking at was a points, rebounds, assisted. I had one on Jamal Murray. Had a couple other ones, and like that first quarter's going. I'm like, oh, let me just log in my Prize Picks account, and then I go, son of. I forgot to hit submit. I forgot to hit submit. I got involved in doing something else, and then I'm like, man. Son of a.
Oh man, yeah, that's the worst. Especially when, like, obviously hindsight 2020, but when you would have won. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially being here in Florida, we cannot legally bet on the games, but Prize Picks is kind of the way to get around that. But let's move over to our next matchup. We got a female matchup. We got Loopy Godinez taking on Emily Ducote. Ducote stepped up here on relative short notice. She's a +120 betting underdog. She's 7,600 on DK, $12 on FanDuel. Loopy Godinez, a -140 betting favorite. She's 8,600 on DK, $19 on FanDuel. Pete, what's your thoughts?
What's the likelihood either one of these fighters reaches 90 points? Because in my head, it's 20%. Mm-hmm. So yep. I'm probably going to be fading this fight, if I'm being honest. We've seen Loopy Godinez smash slates before because of her high takedown upside, but that was because of an impressive first-round submission victory over Silvana Gomez-Juarez. And then the only other one she's absolutely smashed was against Ariana Carnelossi, where she looked like she was going to be UFC champion. But I don't know what the hell happened to that, because she went 8 of 8 in the takedown department. And then prior to that, her other 2 fights, she went 5 of 12 against Loman Lukbumi, and then 2 of 15 against Luana Karolina. After exerting so much effort in trying to get the fight to the mat, we have seen her kind of stray away from her takedowns. She went 1 of 3 against Angela Hill, which I thought, like, against Angela Hill, you should be attempting more than 3 takedowns. And then she went 0 of 2 against Cynthia Calvillo. So not really sure what's happening. I know that she has gassed in the past. Not gassed, but the fatigue is real. And it probably made her say, you know what, I need to be a little bit more selective instead of just completely having, the pedal to the metal when it comes to the wrestling output. And it's kind of gotten her away from her best path to victory in a lot of these fights. So 8,600, I think she's going to incorporate takedowns better than she has in her past 2 fights, because if it's just a striking matchup against Emily Ducote, I think Emily can clearly win the fight. She's a solid striker. She beat Jessica Penne in her debut, threw 205 significant strikes, landed 116. Massive step up in competition against Angela Hill. She didn't pass the test. She threw 173 significant strikes, landed 71. I think that one way or another, I don't see the winner of this fight approaching 90 points. So I'm going to scratch this fight off. I think that Loopy Godinez does get back to her winning ways. And I do think, well, she did pick up that split decision over Cynthia Calvillo, but I think she's going to get back to impressive ways, I should say, and just kind of do enough to win a decision here and score mediocre, like in the 80s. So I'll be passing on this fight, Jason. I like some other ones. And, if Emily Ducote wins a decision and no other underdogs come through, of course she can be a part of the optimal lineup. But I'm expecting a lot of underdogs to come through this week. So I'm okay with passing.
And just to give you an idea, the fantasy score prop over on Prize Picks for Loopy Godinez is a 76.5. So that kind of tells you.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I think Pete, the question comes down to is how much does Godinez incorporate her wrestling? We know she has that pedigree with her, but we just haven't seen it. And also I think kind of a concern for me is Godinez just doesn't take a lot of time off between fights, and that to me it can somewhat be a little bit of concern. Now, the fight that I definitely want to get to this week in terms of GPPs is Joaquin Buckley taking on Andre Fialho. Joaquin Buckley, this was one of those lines that I was surprised by in terms of the betting odds and even the DFS lines. Buckley a minus 230 betting favorite, 9,300 on DK, $20 on FanDuel. Fialho is a plus 190 betting underdog. He's 6,900 on DK, $9 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, I'm really surprised with the salary. And I'm also surprised with how wide the odds are, considering how unreliable both fighters are. A lot of people are just expecting Joaquin Buckley to come in here off of a knockout loss to Chris Curtis, a pretty bad one, and just get back to the winning ways. And it's a dangerous matchup, right? Like, usually Joaquin Buckley is a superior striker than a lot of his opposition. And then when he's not, he can incorporate takedowns better than most people. So he's very well rounded. I do not like the jumps between weight classes all the time. I like to see consistent fighters within certain divisions. And sometimes when you see people jump up or cut down, they're just searching for answers. I do think that welterweight, if he had smart people around him, should have been the answer all along, right? Like, you are not a massive man from a stature standpoint. You have a ton of muscle and you're a big kid and very physical, but you need to be going off of stature. And like, I have a lot of my heavyweights are just at a complete disadvantage because they're very short compared to a lot of people. And a lot of my heavyweights are 5'10" and under. And I'm like, guys, like, it's fine now. But once we turn pro and we start, getting these wins and we start fighting these big guys, like, we got to get down 205 minimum. We got to get you to middleweight 185. And even at middleweight, if you look at from like Diego Lima, like Diego Lima's a monster. Mm-hmm. So for the most part, you just have to tailor your stature around the weight class. And with all that being said, Joaquin Buckley has been chinned and knocked out numerous times. He's been hurt a ton. Andre Fialho has also. I'm going to side with the value here, and I feel like it might be a complete contrarian play. I think that the value is clearly on the Andre Fialho at 6,900. Presents massive knockout upside. Stepping up on short notice to fight Michel Pereira in his debut, who's a dynamic striker. He did fine. The worry about Andre Fialho is always about gassing, but early on he's super dangerous, and we've seen Joaquin Buckley just engage in a firefight. If you tell me first round finish happens, I think you could flip a coin and it could go either way. Joaquin Buckley can knock out Andre Fialho pretty easily, and I think Andre can surprise a lot of people by just throwing some shots down the middle. Has a great left hook as well. But if you say this goes 15 minutes, it's clearly Joaquin Buckley's fight. Mm-hmm. That's probably why he is favored so much, just because he's going to be the better minute winner. But I don't have any trust in either one of these fighters. So I'm going to be siding slightly with Andre Fialho. I feel like he knocks out Joaquin Buckley.
Okay, and give you the quote that Joaquin Buckley said this week about dropping to welterweight. He says, "I got tired of getting knocked out. I ain't going to lie. I'm not scared to fight anybody, but sometimes that's the problem. It's not about being scared. It's about being smart."
So I like, from a coach's aspect, right?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like coaches are in his ear.
Okay.
And he's going to get back to his takedowns. That's what I think.
And that's why I look at this one as a GPP priority, because you broke it down perfectly. Andre Fialho has got that first round knockout upside. But if this fight hits minute 8, minute 9, 10, 11, that to me, it is advantage Joaquin Buckley.
Oh, yeah. If Joaquin Buckley laces up his wrestling shoes, he wins this fight 80% of the time. You know what I mean? I really do believe that. I just don't have any trust that he does so because, he's fallen in love with his hands, and I talk about it all the time. I mean, let's look at some of these takedown attempts. 0 of 0 against Chris Curtis. He went 0 of 3 against Nasruddin Imravov. 0 of 0 against Albert Duraev. Against a dangerous striker, Abdul Razak Al Hassan, who you can kind of draw some parallels between, similar to Andre Fialho. He went 5 of 8. So in a specific matchup like that where he was shook and said, you know what, this guy hits really hard. I'm the better MMA fighter. He went into the takedown department. He only scored 80 though. But I do think that there is late round finish upside for Joaquin Buckley due to the fatigue that Andre Fialho has shown in the past.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when I looked at the ownership projection on this one, I was actually kind of surprised it wasn't a little higher than what the current projections are at there. Let's move over. Next up, we got a lightweight matchup between Diego Ferreira and Michael Johnson. Diego is a minus 150 betting favorite. He is $8,700 on DK, $18 on FanDuel. And then for Michael Johnson, he's a plus 125 betting underdog, $7,500 on DK, $13 on FanDuel. I did see a quote from Michael Johnson that says he still has title aspirations.
Yeah, hey, I'll tell you what, the skills have always been there for Michael Johnson. They really have. It's just he's very, very difficult to get right as far as fight predictions wise, and also just like motivation is considered. There was a time where he was lackadaisical in the octagon and kind of just going through the motions, and his performances clearly showed that. But when he's on, he's one of the best fighters in the world. He had an absolute war with Jamie Mullarkey, who's a stud within the division. And, a lot of people thought he won that fight, and he scored 37 fantasy points. Mark Jacasey, who was like the takedown god in his past couple fights, he just completely took him out of his game, and he ended up winning a decision at 64 with 64 fantasy points at 7,000. So this is a situation where Michael Johnson's speed and his power is always going to make him super alive. And he's actually been defending takedowns a lot, working a lot with Greg Jones out of Killcliff FC. I love that team. It might be my favorite team. I have to tell you, it might be my favorite team out there. He defended 6 takedowns against Mark Jacasey, and then against Jamie Mullarkey, 2 takedowns defended, and then against Alan Patrick, 5 takedowns defended. Is that sprawl and brawl nature is what he needs to do against Diego Ferreira, who's extremely aged within this division. And, Diego Ferreira has an impressive resume, and his past 3 fighters are all better than Michael Johnson, Mateusz Gamrot, Gregor Gillespie, and Beneil Dariush. But I don't think that matters because I think the miles are on there. And I think the tread is off the tires, and I do think that Michael Johnson is going to knock out Diego Ferreira here at 7,500. So I'll be siding with Michael Johnson at 7,500. But if Michael, just kind of is lackadaisical, he can get submitted after dominating. We've seen that multiple times. He was beating Thiago Moises, got submitted. He's always winning his fights until he's not. So he's very untrustworthy, but I'm picking him at 7,500 to win.
I want to mention something you threw out there. If you look at the previous 3 fights for Diego, he did not have the grappling advantage in the matchup, where in this one, he does have the grappling advantage. Yeah. And so it's a drastically different fight. But one thing is, like, when you talk about guys I just love, like, watching fight, Michael Johnson's one of those guys. Like, he's one of those guys that I just want to see him in against a striker. I don't want to see him go up against a grappler because, I mean, look, if you're going to beat Michael Johnson, that's a clear way to go there. Now, when you talk about striking, this next matchup, I'm pretty confident to say the only way a takedown is happening is someone gets rocked, and that's Borshchev and Maheshate. Borshchev is a minus 150 betting favorite, plus 125 for Maheshate. Borshchev, 8,800 on DK, $19 on FanDuel, and Maheshate is 7,400 on DK. $11 on FanDuel. Of course, Borshchev is like he's the oddball at Team Alpha Male, as he's the striker who doesn't really have great wrestling, where everyone else at Team Alpha Male has those wrestling. But this is another fight, Pete, that I kind of think it's going 15 minutes, but like I think it is a sneaky GPP fight to kind of circle.
Yeah, so whenever you have 2 prolific strikers go at it, you either have, well, if they're technical, you tend to have a technical battle that goes 15 minutes because they're both sharp defensively, offensively. They understand the threat that's opposite of them. When you have people that are less technical and more aggressive, that's when you have finishes. And a finish can clearly happen here. I'm going to, watch this fight. I'm going to enjoy this fight. I do side with Slavoklas Borshchev at 8,800 to get it done. I do think that he is a little bit more dynamic than Maheshate. Maheshate is pretty damn big for the division. He hits really hard. We have seen Borshchev hurt on the Contender Series and then land a beautiful counter left hook and kind of pick himself up from almost defeat, the jaws of defeat, if you will. Um, in the UFC, if you're going to give Borshchev any fight, he might be licking his chops right here. I'm telling you right now, like this is perfect. He can go out there and just be free. He can be free and not have to worry about throwing a combination and his opponent just, ducking underneath and taking him down. And that's why a lot of strikers are super reserved in MMA is because they don't have that confidence in their wrestling or the timing in their wrestling to be able to throw everything while also defending. So I'm going to be siding with Slavoklas Borshchev. I've watched a ton of his training. I've watched a ton of his prior fights. And this is a name that I've been excited to see in striking matchups. And yeah, I do like Slavoklas here. I think that, chopping low kicks are going to be imperative here because if he stays with his head on the center line, that monster right hand of Maheshate can put his lights out pretty easily. So I'm excited to watch it. I'm going to get to it for DFS just because they both hit so hard and they're very dynamic that a finish could happen. I'm going to be siding with Slavoklas Borshchev, but I don't hate the underdog Maheshate for numerous reasons.
Let's move over to our next matchup. It's a female matchup between Vanessa Demopoulos and Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Of course, I mentioned a little earlier that Demopoulos did miss weight, and it looks like that the fight is going forward as she's been fined 20% of her purse. Did not look very good on the scale. She's a plus 110 betting underdog, minus 134. Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Kowalkiewicz, 8,500 on DK, $17 on FanDuel. And for Demopoulos, 7,700 on DK, $14 on FanDuel. One note I'll mention about Demopoulos here is she was, for a long time, was at Fight Ready when she moved from California into Arizona. She left Fight Ready. She is now training at Factory X Muay Thai.
I like Factory X. So it's not like it's a superior downgrade at all. It's almost like a lateral move. I'm okay with it. Obviously, the reason I like Demopoulos at Fight Ready was because the high-level wrestling. Factory X still has high-level wrestling, but they are pretty technical striking. And I do think that's going to be helpful for Vanessa Demopoulos, who at a time was just a walking punching bag. Now she's blending things. She's throwing great strikes, well, aggressive strikes into takedowns. So her opponents have to really respect what's coming their way because she can hit you with a big shot or she can just blend it and take you down with a double leg. That wrestling has improved. She used to just be a threat off of her back. That wrestling has 100% improved, and I'm interested to see both Kowalkiewicz and Demopoulos clash because for a time, Karolina Kowalkiewicz was sneaky good, right? And then she went into that really, really big hole where she lost to Jessica Andrade, Michelle Waterson, Alexa Grasso, Yan Xiaonan, and Jessica Penne. 5 fights in a row. So it looked like her career was over. And then she ended up getting a second round finish over Felice Herrig via submission. And then most recently won a decision against Silvana Gomez Juarez. Let me tell you, that performance, Gomez Juarez has improved, and she's not as bad as people think. But I think that Vanessa Demopoulos is better than Silvana Gomez Juarez, and for multiple reasons. Obviously, she has a victory over her, but as far as just skills wise, if you were going to rate her in every category, I do think that Vanessa Demopoulos is a good wrestler and clearly superior in the submission department. And usually Karolina Kowalkiewicz can dominate people in that sneaky area. She throws high volume, can get hit a lot. I hate the fact that Vanessa Demopoulos missed weight. More so because of how she looked. She didn't look good on the scale, and that's what's really, the image of that is kind of like messing with my mind right now. But I'm still going to stick to my guns, and I'm still going to pick Vanessa Demopoulos to beat Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I'm okay with getting away from this fight for some of my lineups. I do think that there are mistakes to be made and that Demopoulos can capitalize on those mistakes. So give me Demopoulos at 7,700.
This is one of those fights that I really don't love for GPPs, where I can see when I'm creating, 20 max lineups that
Yeah.
I set my exposure to 20% on each side of this fight, just because I don't want to find myself getting into that 35% range, just because of where the price point is on this one. But for people who have not seen, just go over to Twitter and look at the way Demopoulos looked on the scale. I mean, it's just not a good look there. Now let's get over to who do you trust more, Orion Cosce or Gilbert Urbina? Cosce a minus 115 betting favorite, minus 105 for Urbina. Cosce 8,400 on DK, $16 on FanDuel. Urbina 7,800 on DK and $15 on FanDuel. Pete, who do you trust more?
I trust Gilbert Urbina more, and I know that may seem like a shock to a lot of people because he's super volatile. He's reckless. He will put himself in great positions. He'll be dominating, then he'll get reversed, and then he's looking like he's about to get finished, and then it's crazy. It's like some amateur tendencies and some fight IQ mistakes as well. Overexertion, where he's just going too crazy and doesn't know how to pace himself efficiently. I do think that the time off and with the correct people in his ear could make him, really just scale things back a little bit. He has all the skills to make this a tough fight for Orion Cosce. Circle this fight. You need the winner of this fight, in my opinion. Orion Cosce has shown that he is a gasser. He has shown that he's very dangerous early on, can hit you and knock you down with big shots, has wrestling to get takedowns, but doesn't have the cardio to really go to that well too often. We did see him pick up a third-round finish on the Contender Series, but I'll tell you what, the visual and just everything in my memory against Blood Diamond, it was a poor performance. Yeah. And Blood Diamond is not UFC caliber at all. At all. So I do not see that win and think that he's going to rebound, pick up another victory in a more impressive fashion. He could because of Urbina's mistakes. But if you lay out all the skills here, I think that Urbina has shown me more despite the fact he's been finished. He put Brian Battle in tons of terrible positions, and he wasn't even supposed to be fighting that fight. He landed 2 of 6 takedown attempts in 7 minutes of fighting. Was doing great against Brian Battle. Pushes like an Anthony Hernandez type of pace. Mm-hmm. And that pace, if he avoids getting finished, I think will break Orion Cosce, because Cosce, I mean, we saw what Phil Rowe did to him. If you can just avoid Cosce early on, you can make him gas, and then you can capitalize. Blood Diamond had some success in there too. I'm going to get to the other side in Cosce just because of the untrustworthy tendencies of Urbina, but I'm siding with Gilbert Urbina. I don't know why I like this guy. It's weird whenever you just randomly root for somebody and you're like, yeah, I like this guy. I like him, and I like the way that he fights, and I think that he can be pretty good with the correct coaching staff around him. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm picking Gilbert Urbina to win at 7,800.
I mean, you mentioned about Blood Diamond fight. Cosce missed weight in that one, and he really wore down in the late second, early third, and all the third round. That to me is a concern, but this is, I think, it's got to be a priority fight. Well, we're talking about GPPs. Next up, we got a heavyweight matchup. We got Rodrigo Nascimento taking on Ilir Latifi. Nascimento is a minus 190 betting favorite. He's 9,000 on DK, $19 on FanDuel. Latifi plus 160 on the betting odds, and over DK 7,200, $10 on FanDuel. Here's the one thing I don't like about Ilir Latifi is he seems to kind of be in this one foot in, 1 foot out in terms of whether he's going to continue fighting or whether he's going to retire. That's always a concern for me, Pete.
Yeah, and also it seems like in a lot of his fights, you're watching it, you're like, is he about to lose this? Like, you're waiting because he looks fatigued all the time. His fight IQ, his aggressiveness, his output is just minimal, where you're like, well, it all depends on what the judges are valuing here. And, when you look at him and he's not throwing more than 20 significant strikes in a round, and he's gassed because he can overexert himself. And this is why this card is super, super volatile, is because of people not knowing how to pace themselves. I just think that Ilir Latifi, for the most part, has the grappling edge over people, especially the wrestling edge over his opposition. And then, like, if people defend takedowns against him, he gasses and he's a sitting duck for some big shots. I know that Rodrigo Nascimento has been working extensively on his striking, a lot of boxing combinations. Ilir Latifi, knee jerk reaction when I saw this, I'm like, wow, Latifi as a dog, I'm interested. And then I started diving into it, and I took age and injuries and inactivity. You know what I mean? Like Latifi, a lot of Latifi's wins are like years ago. Like some of the best wins years ago. In 2021, he picked up a split decision over Tanner Boser, and then 2022, he picked up a unanimous decision over Alexei Olenek. I mean, like he landed 3 of 6 takedown attempts, but like as dangerous as Olenek is, you can take Olenek down. He has poor balance. I think that Rodrigo Nascimento might be one of the sneakiest 9,000 options on this entire slate. Just from like a fatigue standpoint, I think that he could make Ilir Latifi want out. He could possibly get a takedown. I know that Ilir has no neck, so it's going to be very hard to choke him. But I actually think the youth advantage and just being a part of American Top Team with some of the best fighters on the planet is going to make me get to Rodrigo Nascimento, despite the low DFS score expectations. Like if you 84 against Boser, 94 against Alain Badeau, 99 against Dontel Mays, but it does seem like a guy who he's due for 100 points, and I think it could happen in a very strange fight here in the heavyweight division against Ilir Latifi.
Could be a very sneaky play as a FanDuel MVP. I'm gonna throw that one out there for you. Also, something to note is, and Latifi's always going to be in this situation in the heavyweight division, a 7-inch reach disadvantage in that one. But could, look, we talk about every week here on the show of finding that 9,000 option that maybe people may or may not be getting to. But, there's cause for concern of potentially if this thing hits the third round of who has the better gas tank. But the thing that always scares me about Latifi, especially in GPPs, is he just doesn't have volume. And that's the thing that always scares me about him. Next up, we got a matchup as Chase Hooper moves up to 155, take on Nick Fiore. Fiore is a minus 135 betting favorite, 8,300 on DK, $17 on FanDuel. Chase is a plus 115 betting underdog, 7,900 on DK, $14 on FanDuel. And Pete, I never know what to do with Chase Hooper.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, the jiu-jitsu skills are there, but the MMA game is not. I told you a long time ago, I didn't like the gym choices. If you are going to cross-train and you are going to look to improve your skills, try to complement your skills. A lot of times it's easier to complement your skills than fill a void. So, like, working on your striking, but, like, pretty striking, karate striking, not everybody can do that, man. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people can't do that at all. What he should have done is just really honed in on developing his wrestling so that he can get the fight where he wants it in the jiu-jitsu realm. Chase Hooper, I think, is going to be a popular underdog. I'll get to him at 7,900, but I'll tell you what, Nick Fiore in New England, a lot of people know that this kid's ground game is legit. Very, very good. Obviously, soft competition, a lot of inferior opponents throughout his record. But if you go back in his amateur days, he's fought a lot of tough competition. So probably tougher fights as an amateur than he has as a pro. And I've seen him in some absolute grappling exchanges. He can get put in bad positions, but he's a very good grappler. He's very heavy. He's a part of the New England cartel and helping Calvin Kattar, Rob Font, all those guys develop their game, and he's a main sparring partner for them. I think that Nick Fiore, for stepping up on short notice and, doing okay against Mateusz Rebecki, who is a very, very dangerous fighter. Fiore got dominated, yes, but like he landed a takedown against Rebecki, and a lot of people can't do that. He took a lot of shots from Rebecki, and Rebecki is a dangerous guy. So it was a foot in the door. He got into the UFC. Now he's here. He's in a matchup where Chase Hooper has zero physicality. So you know that Fiore is going to be the stronger of the two. The issue with Chase, the issue with fighting Chase is he's so weird and odd that he can create scrambles from anywhere. He can reverse positions a lot, and I can see him winning any fight by some stupid submission like an inverted triangle because of his crazy, his crazy reach in his arms and legs, and just like being so unorthodox and tricky that his strange jiu-jitsu can kind of like pull him from the jaws of defeat. But if you think about it, like Peter Barrett was doing just fine up until the third round. And I do think that Nick Fiore is a better fighter than Peter Barrett. So give me Nick Fiore here at 8,300. I was hoping we were going to get dog money and, under 8,000 for Fiore, just thinking that people were going to go to, Chase Hooper and back him heavily. But I think the public has, gotten off the hype train. And for me, I think it's Fiore's fight to lose.
Pete, I don't want you New England fighters to hate me, but when you talk about the New England bingo card,
yeah, no, I know it's
Jay Ellis is on the bingo card.
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of
not just once, he beat Jay Ellis twice.
Yeah, see that it's a bad look, right? Like,
yeah,
fighting Jay Ellis at all, it's like I don't think it does anything to you other than give you a win on your record, but like. It almost hurts you in a point too. I think personally, it's like, why bother?
Look, I've told this story. I'll continue to tell it. The one thing I've always been told about Jay Ellis, no matter what, he's showing up. He ain't pulling out of a fight.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool, man.
But yeah, it's but you do mention, I mean, look, when you go to Tapology, and this is one of the things why I love to go to Tapology, especially when we're talking about fighters who are either making their UFC debut or maybe have had one UFC fight, is, looking at the type of competition that fighter, I mean, that if you're talking about a negative side of Nick heading into this matchup, that would be the matchup, soft competition, on that regional scene here. But, he does now have one UFC fight on his belt. He does have a submission game, but I mean, like, if you're Tyson Chartier and New England Cartel, I mean, like, the thought to me would be is like, why try to go that wheelhouse when you should be the better stand-up fighter?
Yeah, I don't really think Nick Fiore's stand-up's all that good. I don't think it's bad either, but the issue is you're playing with fire. So I understand what you're saying. So it's going to be a lot of sprawl and brawl, and it's going to be landing in top position. We saw Steven Peterson do just fine against Chase Hooper by executing a similar game plan. Just be aware and be a step ahead in all the reversals and use that weight. I think that a jump up in a weight class for a guy that lacked all the physicality in the world makes no sense to me. So I'm going to go Nick Fiore. It's not like he was strong at featherweight. He was weak as shit, and now he's going up to lightweight. Lightweight guys are like 180. 190. I'm a lightweight guy, and I'm 185 right now. You know what I mean? So it's like
there's a lightweight that I know walks around 195.
Yeah, I mean,
that's to me is when I started going into breaking down this card. I was like, Chase wasn't big at 145. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I just
it's so young. It's not like he's dealing with. It's too tough to cut the weight. You know what I'm saying?
But here's the issue. This is where Chase Hooper is a prime example of why you take your time to get to the big leagues. Develop on that regional scene. Put your body in where your body needs to be from, getting that man strength. That to me has always been concerned about Chase Hooper, but for whatever reason, I always end up being wrong with Chase. So who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong here again. Next up, we got the biggest favorite on the card. That's Natalia Silva. She's a 9-1 betting favorite against Victoria Leonardo. She's 9,700 on DK, $23 on FanDuel. Leonardo is 6,500 on DK, $8 on FanDuel. Pete,
quickly go through this. Natalia Silva is a fantastic fighter. She looked absolutely amazing against Jasmine Jasudavicius. She looked even better against Teresa Bleda, where she picked up a third-round TKO KO. She scored in 85 in both of her UFC fights. She's now priced at 9,700. It's very difficult to pay off 9,700 when there's a lot of volatile matchups on the slate. We need her to get a fast win or, just complete domination in round one. To really pay off that salary, or just, you know what I mean? It almost seems untouchable. I think it's pretty clear she's going to get the victory here. On the regional scene, Victoria Leonardo, her only path to beating Natalia Silva is put Natalia Silva on her back, possibly. And maybe Natalia just plays jiu-jitsu a little too much, but I don't see that happening. Natalia has looked like championship material, not even kidding. She's been defending takedown 6 in both of her past fights. She's going to win this fight. I just don't think she pays off the salary.
Yeah, I mean that's a nice $700 price tag. I mean, it's just a huge price tag to get to. Then of course your opening fight is your 82,000, 8,000 fight with DK Sato Garimbo. Sato is a plus 100 betting underdog, minus 120 for Garimbo on the other side, and then 15 and 16 over there on FanDuel with Sato being the $15 fighter.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Don't trust either one of these fighters, but get to a lot of them. The price tag always makes this fight very easy to get to for your lineups, and especially when both fighters are a little untrustworthy. Temba Garimbo from the EFC, he's been good. He's a submission guy, and he can actually throw on the feet. I've seen him hurt on the feet, though, which is a little concerning when you're going against Takashi Sato, who has a piston left hand. But like when you debut on short notice against AJ Fletcher, who I hold in pretty high regard, and you put AJ Fletcher, who's a very good striker, a very good wrestler, and a very good jiu-jitsu practitioner in some really bad spots. And I was like scratching my head like, damn, is this guy Temba Garimbo going to really just pull off an upset over AJ Fletcher? AJ Fletcher off the break threw a nice elbow into a guillotine choke. But prior to that, man, it was competitive. And Temba Garimbo, yes, he was put on his back also, but he landed 2 of 2 takedowns. Was reversed, got a reversal himself. I think the clear path to victory is just shoot like crazy against Takashi Sato, who has a judoka background, but is a very good striker. And we've seen his Achilles heel in MMA is his submission defense in his wrestling. You would think that at Killcliff FC, it's been developing and improving, but it's kind of hard to trust Sato. I thought Gunnar Nelson was going to submit him. Gunnar Nelson had like 10 minutes of back control time against him, took him down whenever he wanted. Gunnar Nelson is a fantastic grappler. So maybe it means something that he wasn't able to finish Sato. But honestly, when I just look at skills and see the lack of Brazilian jiu-jitsu in Takashi Sato's game, I got to go with Temba Garimbo. I think Temba is either going to shoot a ridiculous amount of takedowns where enough of them are going to get through for Takashi Sato en route to a decisive victory, or I think he's just going to pick up a submission win. Or on the flip side, Takashi Sato just hits him with a step back left hand, and we get a high score. So I'm going to be sided with Temba Garimbo here at 8,000, but I feel like you need this fight. I really do.
Yeah, it was another fight that I looked at. Let's get into our straight up fight picks. Main event, I'm going to go underdog number 1, Angela Hill.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mackenzie Dern, but, if it was a 3-rounder, I'd be going with Hill.
I will go Anthony Hernandez. I will go Godinez, but I think this fight's closer than the odds.
I hate to fight for DFS, but I'm going Godinez.
I will go Buckley.
All right, let's switch things up. I'm going Fialho.
All right. I'm going to go Diego Ferreira just because of the grappling advantage.
All right, interesting. You see he's sporting a new haircut too. He looks like a completely different person. I'm going to go with Michael Johnson.
I'm going to underdog number 2 in Maheshate.
Okay, I'm going to go with Slava Claus Borshchev. I knew it was going to be one of these weeks where we disagree on a lot, but our exposures are probably going to be pretty similar.
Yeah. I will go Kowalkiewicz, but I think arm guard from guard is live in this one.
I hear you. I'm going Demopoulos.
I'm going to go underdog number 3, Urbina.
Ooh, I like it. Give me Urbina.
Give me Nascimento.
Yeah, Nascimento for me.
I'll go Fiore. Give me Silva. And then I think it'll be Sato as it'll be underdog number 4 for me in Sato.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Temba Garimbo.
Over on Prize Picks, I don't love a ton on Prize Picks this week. Just because I do like Angela Hill to win in main event. Less than 98.5 fantasy score on Mackenzie Dern. I'm going to say under 2 takedowns for Loopy Godinez. I think that fight's going to stay on the feet. I think more 12.5 fight time minutes on Nascimento. Under 1.5 takedowns for Chase Hooper. Those are the ones that stick out to me the most.
Yeah, I like that takedown prop for Hooper. I like the under on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of feeling like I'm going to put a 5 player card together and maybe have 2 from the UFC and then 3 from the NBA tonight. Will probably be where I kind of play a card. And that's one of the great things about Prize Picks. You can do cross sports entries as something to play in there. Get some questions in over from Discord so we start to wrap things up here. Best value plays under 8K on DraftKings. I mean, look, Angel Hill and cash I think is a great value play in terms of I wouldn't necessarily say GPP, more of a cash games play. Other value plays, I mean, look, Andre Fialho, we all know first round upside. In terms of him, Maheshate's got that upside to me. Urbina would be another one. Those would be the only ones I would throw in there.
Yeah, so my 3, if I had to give them, would be Urbina, Johnson, and Demopoulos.
Rank the 9K fighters and who has the best takedown upside. Well, best takedown upside to me has got to be Anthony Hernandez.
Agree. Takedown upside number 2, I would say, is Joaquin Buckley if he wants to, but I just don't trust that he does.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the 9,000 options, I would put Hernandez number 1 for me. Number 2, I would put Buckley if he does go the takedown route. Number 3, I would go Nascimento. 4, I would go Silva. 5, I would go Dern.
Yeah, I don't think Nascimento is going to take down Ilir Latifi. I think that he's going to knock him out or hurt him enough. But yeah, I think that Natalia Silva, like she can win this fight however she wants. It comes down to like what she wants to do. I would imagine she wants to keep it on the feet, but maybe she wants to just completely make a statement. She landed 2 of 3 takedowns against Jasmine Jasudavicius, who's a solid wrestler. But it's clearly Hernandez 1, Buckley 2, Dern 3, Silva 4, Nascimento 5 for me.
Nice parlay / FanDuel MVP ideas. I'll touch on the FanDuel MVP ideas here. I think Anthony Hernandez, because that takedown upside, potentially racking up some points there. I look at Buckley as another potential one as an MVP. Nascimento, I think, is a little bit of a sneaky one as well. Really don't love Dern. She's getting a lot of ownership at MVP. I really wouldn't go there.
Yeah, I'm okay with getting away from the fight, man. I am.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a parlay, I mean, like if I was going to start a parlay ticket with anyone, I'd probably start with Anthony Hernandez. Would probably be my top one.
I get it, but I tell you, that seems like a trap.
I know, I get you.
Like a trap. It seems like a parlay trap. I think that Hernandez is clearly my favorite 9,000 option, and I love this stylistic matchup. But certain cards, you got to say, screw it, man. I'm not making a parlay. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 4, and then something stupid's going to happen, and then you're going to be out all the money. So I'd rather go fight by fight this card.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like, and I really don't like parlaying props. It might be more of, I would maybe look at parlaying props more than anything else. Maybe some over-unders, over 1.5 round type props, but not a ton that really stick out to me there. Top 3 favorites based on scoring potential. Scoring potential, Andre Fialho's got to be up there, that first round upside of what he could do. I mean, Shahbazyan, you might want to put in there too, is if he's going to win, it's going to be in the first or second round.
These are underdogs?
Yeah.
As far as upside, yeah, it's clearly Fialho 1, Shahbazyan 2. And then it's...
How about Gilbert Urbina?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, there's so many that's why I look at these underdogs and I'm like, if they win, I'm expecting a huge score. Like, if Maheshate wins, I think he wins by knockout. If Michael Johnson wins, I think it's by knockout. Urbina's pace, though, Urbina and like Hernandez together, they're so similar with the pace they push. They could both break the slate, and I'm probably going to pair those 2 together.
And the final question we'll have over here, and of course, if you want to get a question in, one of the best places to do that is over by joining our Discord channel. Totally free to join. Link is below. And it says, what's your main event exposure? I will tell you this. I'll be well under the field in terms of what we're seeing ownership-wise. I think Dern, I'll probably maybe be in that 25-30% range.
Wow,
Hill, I'll probably be maybe a little less. I like Hill as a cash game play more than a GPP play.
Yeah, and it could still be a solid DFS fight and not be a part of the optimal lineup.
Yeah.
You just need the other fights to go off, and I'm going to take that chance this week.
No, I totally get you there. Of course, if you do have any questions, you can leave a comment right here in YouTube. Myself or Pete, we will get back to you. Of course, also you can join our Discord channel as we're always in there talking fight game, whatever may be going on. So be sure to check us out over there. Pete, anything else you want to leave the listeners with before we get out of here?
No, I just want to say thanks, guys. Ugly card, but let's make some money. Pick your spots. Make sure you got good ownership on good exposure on certain fighters. And join the Discord so you guys can keep the conversation going. Hit that like button for us. Get us over 100 likes. We really, really appreciate that. And help us get to 1,000 subscribers one way or another. If you can shout us out on social media, that'd be truly appreciated. But all in all, thanks for tuning in to another edition here on Fight HQ.
We always appreciate it, of course. You can always check out the show on the podcast channels as well. The show will be up there in a little bit later on this afternoon. And, of course, I'll add those time marks here after the show is over. So that's going to do it for us. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll get you ready for the next UFC Fight Night card, which I'm pretty sure is in the Apex. I want to say it's headlined by Kai Car France, I want to say. That's the email I got the other day on that one. I live kind of a week-by-week basis. So we'll be back here in 2 weeks to break that one down for you. Of course, appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode of the Fight HQ podcast.